The galaxy had known peace for centuries, fragile and brittle, held together by treaties that had survived more wars than anyone could count. On the bridge of the Solarian, a massive alien command ship, officers monitored the void with unease. Something had appeared on their sensors, a massive energy signature that defied explanation. It wasn't moving like a normal vessel, and its energy readings were unlike anything catalogued. Commander Varric narrowed his eyes at the screens, feeling a cold ripple of unease crawl through his body. "What is that?" he asked, voice tight. No one had an answer. The sensors flickered and beeped erratically as the anomaly moved closer. Scouts sent to investigate had not returned. Communications with the outer monitoring satellites had gone silent. As if whatever was out there could erase signals before anyone could react. Officers whispered, speculating. Experimental weapon? Rogue fleet? Natural phenomenon? None dared speak aloud the word that lingered in their thoughts. Human. The name was almost forgotten in alien legend, a species said to be confined to the outer sectors, barely more than myth. And yet the readings were unmistakable. This was no ordinary ship. On a small moon orbiting a gas giant, the inhabitant Selene, engineers and technicians watched the skies with growing alarm. The first warning came as a subtle vibration through the planet's magnetic field. Barely detectable, but enough to make instruments spike in activity. Then came the faint flashes. In orbit, sensors picking up shadows that should not exist. The humans were already here, though no one could see them clearly. Panic rose slowly at first, then surged as scouts sent to the edge of the atmosphere were obliterated before they could relay a message. The humans did not announce their presence. They struck silently, efficiently, and vanished just as quickly. Commander. Varric convened his officers in the strategy room, the walls vibrating with tension. "This cannot be a single ship," one officer argued, scanning the distorted sensor readings. "The energy output is massive, larger than a fleet of cruisers combined." Another officer's claws trembled as he pointed at a map of nearby. "Systems. If it is a single ship, then it is beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen. Our treaties, our fleets, our alliances, useless against this." The room fell into uneasy silence. Even among the most hardened commanders, fear was spreading. The humans were not just a threat. They were unknowable, unpredictable, terrifyingly efficient. As night fell across the outer sectors, isolated signals began to reach scattered colonies. Ships and stations reported brief visual contacts. A shadow crossing a star, a flash of energy that defied explanation, sensors detecting power surges without source. Panic began to ripple through civilian and military populations alike. Rumors spread, a warship too powerful for the galaxy. Tales that had once been dismissed as myths now carried a weight that made even the bravest shiver. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity had returned. Not as diplomats, not as explorers, but as a force no treaty could bind. No alliance could stop. The Solarian attempted to engage the anomaly, but every attempt failed. Energy readings spiked and dropped as if the humans were laughing at the sensors' attempts to track them. Scouts sent to intercept vanished instantly. Defensive satellites malfunctioned without reason. Commander Varric's claws drummed on the console in frustration. "We have never faced anything like this," he admitted, voice low. "Not in 1,000 cycles. Not even in our legends. And yet, it is here." His officers exchanged nervous glances. Every calculation, every prediction, every contingency seemed irrelevant. This was not a battle that could be measured by firepower or fleet size. This was something else entirely. Reports began to arrive from planets near the anomaly. Energy pulses, disrupted communications, weather patterns destabilized, and gravitational readings fluctuated wildly. Colonies were on high alert, evacuating civilians, but evacuation convoys vanished or were delayed mysteriously. The humans did not attack openly, they moved silently, appearing only when necessary, and leaving confusion and fear in their wake. Alien commanders struggled to comprehend how a single warship could sow chaos across multiple systems without apparent effort. It was almost as if the ship had a mind of its own, anticipating reactions and neutralizing threats before they could act. Varrock stared at the readings, feeling a sense of dread tighten in his chest. We have treaties, codes, agreements. We have allies, he said, more to himself than anyone else. None of it matters. Not one of them will stop this. The room was silent except for the beeping of overloaded consoles. Every officer knew he spoke the truth. Across the galaxy, civilizations held fragile peace. But peace had no meaning when faced with a force that rendered fleets, strategies, and diplomacy useless. Humans from the deadliest worlds had arrived, and their first strike was the revelation that no one could prepare for what was coming. As the hours passed, the Solarian sensors caught a faint but undeniable visual. The outline of the human warship. It was massive, sleek, and unlike any alien design. Shadows clung to its surface, energy flared in silent bursts, and it moved with a grace that suggested intelligence beyond technology. Everyone on the bridge froze, staring in disbelief. For the first time, Commander Varrock's voice broke into a whisper. This is impossible. And yet there it was, in all its terrifying, glorious single human warship, too powerful. For the galaxy, too unstoppable for any treaty. Far beyond anything anyone had dared imagine, the silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. Every mind in the command room realized one thing: the rules of war, the rules of diplomacy, the rules of survival, all of it had changed. Humanity had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The galaxy had barely begun to grasp the meaning of the anomaly when disaster struck. The human warship, vast and silent, emerged from hyperspace near a lightly defended planet on the edge of the Coalition territories.
Alien sensors screamed
Warnings, but by the time the fleets could mobilize, it was too late. Orbital defense stations were obliterated in seconds. Their massive shields vaporized by energy beams that defied calculation. Explosions rippled across the planet's surface as the humans demonstrated. Without a single word, the terrifying truth: they could strike anywhere, anytime, and no defense could hold. Commander Varrock stared at the bridge monitors in disbelief. The alien officers around him could only gape, claws tightening in panic. How is this possible? One of them whispered, voice trembling. The energy readings were off the charts, exceeding anything recorded for decades. The human warship moved with uncanny precision, avoiding counterfire while delivering maximum destruction. Entire fleets were shredded before the aliens could even react. Every shot fired at the warship seemed anticipated, dodged, or rendered useless by some mysterious human technology. Panic spread like wildfire, eroding the confidence that treaties and alliances had built over centuries. On the surface, civilians watched the devastation from underground shelters. Cities once bustling with commerce and life were now engulfed in fire and smoke. The aliens had expected an attack, of course, but nothing could have prepared them for the speed and efficiency of the humans. Buildings vaporized as energy beams struck, military outposts evaporated in seconds, and communications went dead. The warship moved almost like a living organism, flowing across orbital paths and planetary defenses with a fluidity that was terrifying. In its elegance, rumors of its power began to spread even faster than the destruction itself. In the Solarian command room, chaos reigned. Officers barked orders that were impossible to fulfill. Scouting units sent to intercept the warship were destroyed before reaching its orbit. Reinforcements from nearby sectors were cut off mid-transit, their communication systems disabled. Every alien fleet that had once been considered elite was being reduced to ash and debris. The humans did not hesitate, did not negotiate, and did not show mercy. Their strike was surgical, precise, and utterly overwhelming. Commander Varrock's eyes narrowed, cold realization forming in his mind. This was not just a ship, it was a force of nature. It's built for one purpose: dominance. Tyrax, Varrock's second in command, paced the floor, trying to comprehend the devastation. They are too fast, too precise. Our weapons are useless, he muttered, his voice shaking. He gestured at a holographic display showing the warship's path of destruction. Entire planetary defense grids had been neutralized in minutes. Supply lines were severed, orbital stations destroyed, and evacuation convoys intercepted. This is more than war, This is a demonstration, he added, his tone almost reverent despite the panic. A warning to the entire galaxy. From the humans' perspective, the attack was flawless. The crew of the warship moved with quiet efficiency, operating systems and weapons that alien engineers could only marvel at. They targeted only what mattered: defense installations, communication nodes, and military fleets. Civilian areas were largely avoided, demonstrating a cold but deliberate sense of purpose. The warship's captain, human and calm, monitored the destruction with an almost detached focus, adjusting trajectory and energy output with precision that left the alien fleet scrambling in vain.
Ow.
Every move was calculated, every strike planned, and every victory inevitable. Alien leaders scrambled to respond.
Ow.
Fleets from nearby systems were called to defend, but they were already too late. Hyperjump coordinates were recalculated, energy shields maximized, and fleets reorganized. Yet, nothing worked. The humans anticipated every strategy, neutralizing attacks before they even began. One alien officer, witnessing yet another failed counterattack, muttered to himself, "They are not just fighting, they are orchestrating our defeat." Fear had begun to seep into every level of command, affecting both officers and soldiers alike. Reports from planetary colonies poured in. Survivors spoke of humans appearing where they should have been impossible to reach, neutralizing entire defense teams with precision and speed that seemed superhuman. Ships sent to protect convoys were destroyed before leaving the atmosphere. Every attempt to resist was met with swift, decisive, and merciless action. The aliens realized, with growing horror, that treaties and diplomacy meant nothing. The humans had arrived to demonstrate that no agreement could restrain their power. By the time the first strike ended, the human warship had withdrawn as silently as it had appeared, leaving destruction in its wake and fear in the hearts of all who witnessed it. Entire fleets were decimated, cities were in flames, and the message was clear: humanity could act without warning, strike with precision unmatched by any other species, and vanish before retaliation. Commander Varric slumped into his chair, staring at the monitors, knowing fully that the galaxy's peace, built over centuries, had just been shattered. The alien officers whispered in fear, exchanging grim looks. The humans had sent a clear warning without a single word. They were a force beyond control, beyond treaties, and beyond comprehension. Across the galaxy, leaders would soon realize that nothing could match the warship's power. Humanity had made its presence known, and the first strike was only the beginning. The shock of the first strike had barely settled when the galaxy's leaders convened in emergency. Alien councils, ambassadors, and warlords from multiple sectors gathered in a massive orbital chamber, their holographic screens displaying the devastation left behind by the human warship. Every species present shared the same grim realization: treaties and diplomacy. The fragile bonds that had kept centuries of peace were meaningless against this force. Commander Vark, still reeling from the attack, addressed the assembly. "We have faced threats before," he began, voice steady, but eyes betraying fear. "We have survived rebellions, invasions, even wars that span decades. But what we face now is beyond any treaty, any alliance, any preparation." Diplomats hurried to remind the Council of existing agreements. Centuries-old treaties prohibited unprovoked attacks, regulated fleet movement, and established neutral zones. They were designed to maintain balance and prevent the rise of unchecked power. And yet, the human warship had ignored all of them. It had struck without warning, without communication, and without regard for civilian casualties, or at least without apparent concern. The energy signature alone suggested technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever catalogued. For the first time, leaders began to question whether any law, any code, could restrain a force of this magnitude. Alien envoys attempted to open channels, sending formal messages of warning and diplomacy. One by one, those communications vanished. Signals were intercepted, scrambled, or delivered empty, leaving only silence in their wake. The humans offered no reply, no negotiation, only evidence of power in every orbital sensor and surface scanner. Panic spread among the delegates. Some began whispering about ancient legends, humans from the deadliest worlds. A species once thought contained, now returning with technology and skill beyond imagination. The council realized the first strike was only a warning, a demonstration of what could happen if humans chose to ignore treaties entirely. Commander Varak paced the chamber. Holographic maps of the strike displayed in front of him. "We can gather fleets. We can form alliances. We can attempt diplomacy," he said, voice tight. "None of it will work. They are not here to negotiate. They are here to show that the rules we cling to no longer apply." His officers listened. In stunned silence, the weight of truth settling over them. Across the galaxy, military commanders had begun reassessing their strategies. Every plan, every contingency, every fleet deployment was being rendered irrelevant by a single warship. Fear replaced hope, confusion replaced strategy, and doubt replaced certainty. In one sector, a coalition of fleets attempted to intercept the human warship, hoping that overwhelming numbers might halt its advance. Their transmissions were precise. Their maneuvers coordinated, yet they failed catastrophically. Energy beams designed to penetrate shields fizzled before impact. Fleets became disoriented as sensor systems failed, and alien crews panicked under unexpected attacks. The humans had anticipated every move, every strategy, and every weakness. The coalition fled with heavy losses, leaving no doubt, diplomacy, and force. Combined, were powerless against this unprecedented power. Rumors of the humans' efficiency spread faster than the attacks themselves. Survivors told tales of entire fleets disappearing, of fleets retreating into hyperspace only to find exit coordinates blocked, of commanders witnessing strike teams disable entire defense networks without warning. The galaxy's leaders began to realize a horrifying truth. Treaties, which had been their greatest protection, were meaningless when faced with a species that could strike anywhere, anytime, with precision unmatched by anything else. Fear gripped both military and civilian sectors alike. The humans were not just powerful, they were beyond comprehension. Alien scientists attempted to analyze the warship's energy readings. Every calculation ended in frustration. The humans' technology seemed adaptive, intelligent even, reacting faster than any sensor could detect. Energy beams bent around defenses, shields were bypassed with surgical accuracy and propulsion. Systems allowed the warship to appear where it was least expected. No previous experience or knowledge could predict its actions. The scientists whispered to one another, acknowledging what many feared. Treaties could not stop this. Strategy could not stop this. Known in the galaxy could stop this. Across the council chambers, ambassadors debated frantic measures. Evacuation protocols, fleet consolidation, even desperate calls for secret alliances were proposed. Every suggestion, however, was tempered by one undeniable fact. The humans' first strike had proven their superiority. They had no interest in negotiation, had already demonstrated power that rendered centuries of law, diplomacy, and preparation irrelevant. Commander Varak, watching the panic unfold, realized the futility of their efforts. Humanity had not arrived to reason, to bargain, or to negotiate. They had arrived to show that the galaxy's rules were meaningless in the face of their might, as the council dispersed in fear and confusion. The alien leaders could only stare at the flickering images of the human warship. Silence fell over the chamber, heavy and oppressive. Every species present understood that nothing they had ever known about war, power, or diplomacy could protect them now. The humans had returned unstoppable, intelligent, and far beyond any rule or treaty. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the warship moved silently, waiting, calculating, and preparing for its next strike. The galaxy had learned one terrifying lesson. Humanity from the deadliest worlds did not negotiate. Humanity did not bargain. Humanity enforced its own rules. And for the first time in recorded history, treaties that had held the galaxy together for centuries were broken, not by force of law, but by a single, unstoppable ship. The galaxy held its breath. For weeks, speculation, fear, and rumors had circulated about the mysterious human presence. Every planet, every fleet, every council whispered the same question. What was this power that ignored treaties, bypassed defenses, and struck with surgical precision? And now, at last, the humans revealed themselves not just as a force, but as a singular, terrifying entity that dwarfed all known technology, the human warship. It appeared first as a shadow against the stars, moving slowly, deliberately, as if it were aware of every eye watching it. Alien sensors went into overload the moment it came into range. Energy readings fluctuated wildly, defying all measurement. Ships attempting to approach were thrown back by gravitational distortions and waves of energy that made targeting systems fail. Commander Verak's claws tightened around the console as he realized the scale of what they faced. It's larger than we imagined, he muttered. His officers, usually composed under fire, could do nothing but gape at the displays. The warship was sleek, elegant, and massive, a design that combined speed, power, and resilience in ways the galaxy had never seen. Every weapon, every shield, every defensive system on the ship was far beyond the best technology alien engineers could produce. Its surface shimmered with adaptive energy fields, able to absorb, redirect, and nullify attacks in real time. The warship moved with an almost intelligent grace, anticipating enemy maneuvers before they happened. Small fleets sent to challenge. It vanished like dust in a windstorm. Even elite strike teams, trained to combat the deadliest threats, were neutralized in minutes. Every alien commander watching the screens felt the same. Creeping terror, this was not a warship they were witnessing, a force beyond comprehension. On distant planets, civilians watched as orbital fleets engaged the human warship. Light flares burst across the atmosphere, beams slicing through ships that had once been considered invincible.
Panic
And awe mingled in equal measure. News networks, communication relays, and observers all reported the same scenes: a single human vessel, dismantling entire fleets with precision and efficiency. It was a display not of chaos, but of deliberate power. Humans were not just fighting, they were teaching a lesson in supremacy. Commander Varak convened the surviving alien officers. It is unstoppable, he admitted, his voice low and trembling. We have fought the greatest fleets in history, survived invasions that spanned sectors, but this is beyond anything we've known. Our strategies fail, our weapons fail, our fleets fail. One officer shook his head, unable to comprehend. It moves as if it knows our minds, our tactics, our weaknesses. We are ghosts to it, unable to land a blow. Every officer present understood the truth. No preparation, no alliance, no treaty could counter what they now faced. The humans demonstrated their power in more than firepower. They anticipated supply routes, cut communications, and neutralized command centers without entering orbit. Alien fleets found their plans sabotaged before they could act. Even the most secure installations, hidden for generations, were compromised, in ways that left engineers questioning the very nature of reality. Humans acted like a storm with purpose, destructive, precise, and inescapable. In one dramatic encounter, a fleet of alien cruisers attempted to flank the warship from both sides. They coordinated meticulously, believing that overwhelming numbers might work. Within moments, the humans responded not with chaos, but with precision. Energy beams struck only the engines, disabling movement. Shields collapsed selectively, forcing ships into collision courses. Command crews were neutralized through targeted strikes. The entire fleet was incapacitated within minutes, left floating silently as the human warship moved on, unscathed and unhurried. It was a level of control, efficiency, and foresight that no alien had ever experienced. Observers began to notice patterns. The warship avoided unnecessary destruction. Civilian targets were spared. Energy output was carefully measured. Strikes were calculated, and movements were deliberate. Every action communicated a lesson. Humans were not reckless. They were unstoppable, yes, but intelligent. They acted not for chaos, but for purpose. Every attack demonstrated superiority. Every maneuver reinforced the lesson: the galaxy's rules no longer applied. As news of the full reveal spread, fear turned to awe. Alien officers, engineers, and civilians alike whispered the name in hushed tones. The warship was no myth. Humans had returned, stronger and more intelligent than anyone had dared hope or fear. Every treaty, every alliance, every precaution was meaningless before the power of a single vessel. Piloted by a species who had survived the deadliest worlds, Commander Varric stared at the displays, his claws gripping the console. "We face not a fleet, but a force," he muttered. "One ship, one species, and the entire galaxy cannot stop them." Around him, officers whispered similar words of despair. Across the stars, fleets were in retreat, communication networks were crippled, and panic spread like wildfire. Humanity had arrived not as negotiators, not as explorers, but as a force. That reshaped the rules of the universe itself, and yet there was no anger, no unnecessary violence. The humans acted with precision, control, and purpose. Their power was absolute, but it was also a warning. Any who opposed them would learn the cost of defiance. Any who underestimated them would vanish. The warship was not merely a weapon, it was a statement, a demonstration of human dominance, skill, and strategy. Across the galaxy, everyone realized the terrifying truth. Treaties were useless, fleets were useless, and survival depended on understanding one immutable fact: humanity had returned, and they were unstoppable. The alien fleets had recovered from the initial shock, but their resolve was brittle. Across multiple sectors, military commanders convened in frantic meetings, pooling resources and manpower for one purpose: to stop the human warship. Every fleet, every elite squad, every strategic outpost was mobilized in a desperate attempt to challenge the force that had already shattered the galaxy's sense of security. Plans were drafted, calculations made, and contingencies prepared, but nothing could erase the growing fear in the hearts of all who faced the humans. Commander Varric, sitting in the command chamber of the Solarian, studied the battle maps with grim determination. "I cannot allow them to continue unchallenged," he said, voice tight with tension. "We must act, or everything we know will fall." His officers nodded, though their expressions betrayed anxiety. Coordinated attacks were organized, fleets dispatched to intercept the human warship on multiple fronts. Every move was calculated with military precision, every possibility considered, and yet no one could know that the humans had already anticipated this response. The first wave of alien counterattacks was met with silence, followed by chaos. Scouts sent to flank the human warship vanished almost instantly, their sensors overloaded, their communications cut. Fleets converged on projected coordinates, only to find themselves surrounded by empty space, or worse, trapped by gravitational anomalies they could not explain. Energy readings spiked and dropped unpredictably, leaving alien crews scrambling. In confusion, every attempt to challenge the humans was neutralized before it could begin. The warship moved with a precision and foresight that seemed impossible, striking only where necessary, avoiding unnecessary engagement, and leaving devastation in its wake. On the front lines, small alien squadrons attempted daring maneuvers. Fighter teams darted in from multiple angles, hoping to exploit perceived weaknesses. But every strike was anticipated. Energy beams deflected attacks, propulsion systems countered maneuvers, and adaptive shields absorbed volleys with ease. Ships were disabled with surgical precision, engines fried, navigation systems disrupted, and crews incapacitated, all without exposing the human warship to risk. Alien pilots began to whisper in disbelief. This was no ordinary opponent. This was something beyond intelligence, beyond strategy, beyond comprehension. Meanwhile, intelligence units scrambled to find vulnerabilities. Spies were sent, infiltration teams deployed, and sabotage operations planned. Yet every covert mission failed spectacularly. Humans seemed to anticipate every move, every choice, every hidden plan. Outposts that were supposedly secret were neutralized. Supply lines intercepted, communications compromised. Alien commanders were forced to admit that nothing they had ever known about warfare applied here. The humans' efficiency, precision, and anticipation of their enemies' tactics were beyond any precedent. On the homeworlds, panic began to spread. Reports came in of fleets disbanding under pressure, of soldiers refusing to fight after witnessing human precision firsthand. Even the most veteran commanders were overwhelmed by the realization that every strategy, every maneuver, every contingency they had relied upon for centuries was now irrelevant. The human warship had demonstrated not just firepower, but complete dominance over planning, prediction, and execution. It was as if it could see through every calculation, predict every response, counter every decision before it happened. The humans' approach was not reckless. It was deliberate. They struck where it mattered, avoided unnecessary destruction, and demonstrated a cold efficiency that left no room for hope. Entire fleets sent to challenge them were decimated in ours. Alien engineers scrambled to repair defenses, only to find their work undone before completion. Command centers were paralyzed by sudden attacks. Colonies reported devastation in orbit and communication failures on the surface. The humans had shown that their power extended beyond weapons, it extended to strategy, anticipation, and control of the battlefield itself. In one sector, an alliance of alien fleets attempted a combined assault, using numbers and coordination. As their advantage, their strategy was meticulous, aiming to trap the warship between multiple points of attack. For a moment, it seemed the humans might be challenged, but the warship moved with calm inevitability, striking the engines of one fleet, disabling communications of another, and neutralizing command crews without ever exposing itself. Within hours, the alliance had crumbled, ships drifting lifelessly, crews incapacitated, and morale shattered. The galaxy was forced to confront a painful truth. Quantity could not overcome quality. Strategy could not overcome precision, and no alliance could counter human ingenuity. By the time the battle ended, alien commanders were left with nothing but ruins and fear. The human warship withdrew as silently as it had struck, leaving devastation and a chilling message. Resistance was futile. Commander Varek sank into his chair, exhausted, frustrated, and terrified. "We cannot stop them," he admitted voice. Barely audible, every plan, every fleet, every alliance, useless. His officers nodded in grim agreement. Across the galaxy, the lesson was the same. Humans were not only powerful, they were unbeatable. Every strike, every movement, every decision demonstrated that the warship was more than technology. It was an extension of the deadliest species the galaxy had ever encountered. And somewhere beyond the stars, the humans observed, calm and calculating. Knowing their purpose had been accomplished, fear had spread, alliances had faltered, and the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Any who attempted to oppose humans from the deadliest worlds would fail. The galaxy had never been so silent. Entire sectors held their breath as reports of the human warship's movement spread like wildfire. Fleets that once believed themselves unstoppable now cowered in the shadows of space. Planets evacuated. Their populations, command centers, went dark, and the leaders of alien civilizations convened in panic, their eyes wide with disbelief. Humanity had made its presence known, and the message was clear. Resistance was futile. On the bridge of the human warship, the crew moved with calm precision. Every system was monitored, every calculation executed flawlessly. The captain, human, stood observing the galaxy below, his expression unreadable. He did not smile. He did not shout. There was no celebration, no cruelty, only purpose. They had come to deliver a lesson, and the galaxy had learned it well. Communication channels flickered to life across hundreds of systems, a single message, sent to every major government, alliance, and fleet, humanity's verdict. The message was simple. It was direct. It required no translation. Comply or face annihilation, it read. Every leader who received it felt the weight of its truth. No fleet, no alliance, no army could challenge this force. Every calculation, every contingency, Every treaty meant nothing in the presence of the humans' unmatched power. Panic spread faster than any ship, faster than any weapon. Diplomacy was dead. Negotiation was irrelevant. The humans had spoken. And their voice carried the authority of the deadliest species the galaxy had ever encountered. Commander Varrock sat slumped in his chair aboard the Solarian, staring at the message. He had fought wars, negotiated truces, and survived threats that would have destroyed lesser commanders. But this was different. "We are finished," he whispered, claws tightening on the console. Around him, officers muttered similar words of despair. Every fleet mobilized to oppose humanity had been neutralized. Every strategy, every plan, every alliance had failed. The galaxy was forced to acknowledge the obvious. Humans had returned. To reshape the rules of war, power, and survival. Across countless planets, civilians watched the message broadcast. Panic was universal. Communication systems overloaded as fleets attempted to coordinate, only to find themselves powerless. In orbital command centers, leaders whispered in fear, realizing that no strategy could save them. Supplies meant for defense were destroyed, weapons rendered useless, and the very idea of resistance was shattered. Humanity had not merely attacked, they had demonstrated absolute superiority, making the choice clear: comply or face total destruction. Yet the humans' actions were not entirely driven by chaos or anger. Observers noted the precision with which the warship operated. Energy. Beams targeted only military installations, command centers, and key fleets. Civilian populations were largely spared. Systems were left intact, infrastructure unharmed. The humans had delivered their verdict with purpose, control, and intelligence. Every action communicated not only power, but restraint, teaching the galaxy a lesson in dominance tempered by calculated strategy. Commander Varrock convened his remaining officers. "We cannot fight," he admitted, voice heavy with defeat. "We cannot negotiate. Every fleet, every weapon, every tactic has failed. The humans have shown us the future of power." The officers nodded in agreement. Across the galaxy, similar discussions occurred. Alliances faltered, fleets retreated, and leaders acknowledged the uncomfortable truth. Humanity's return was not a mere conflict, it was a revelation. A demonstration that the deadliest species had returned to claim their place among the stars as the human warship moved silently through space. Colonies, fleets, and governments began to submit. Orders were issued to cease all military operations, to open channels for communication, to comply with the humans' directives. Fear was the driving force, but so was awe. For the first time in recorded history, civilizations understood the difference between strength and supremacy. Humans were not only strong, they were intelligent, precise, and unstoppable. Every calculation, every maneuver, every decision had been designed to demonstrate this fact. The captain of the warship observed the galaxy calmly. The message had been delivered, the lesson taught. Across sectors, fleets were immobilized, command centers paralyzed, and civilizations reconsidered every assumption they had ever held about power and survival. The humans had returned, not for conquest alone, but to reshape the galaxy's understanding of dominance. They were not negotiators, not diplomats, not explorers. They were the deadliest force the universe had ever encountered. As the warship finally withdrew, the galaxy was left changed forever. The silence was heavy, filled with fear, awe, and a reluctant respect. Leaders whispered of treaties that no longer mattered, fleets that no longer posed a threat, and a species that had returned stronger than ever. Humanity's verdict had been delivered. Clear and unyielding. The deadliest worlds had returned, and the galaxy had no choice but to obey, adapt, or vanish. The stars themselves seemed to bow to this new reality. Across the galaxy, one truth emerged above all else: humans had returned, unstoppable, precise, and supremely intelligent. They had spoken, and the universe had listened. Civilization would never be the same again.